The debate continues. New tonight on Our News, live at 7. The Protection Against Violence bill now on the Senate floor. But first, help for Haiti. 150 Bahamian officers sent in to help its ongoing humanitarian crisis. Plus, a Supreme Court ruling today lands a hit-and-run driver in jail for 3 years. Then, in Our News at 7:30, an oil spill at Buckeye Terminal now under investigation. Our News live at 7 starts right now. Welcome to Our News Live at 7. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Candino Knowles. The much talked about Protection Against Violence bill making its way to the Senate. The Attorney General admitting the bill now being debated is far from what was originally presented years ago. We've got more from today's proceedings in a moment, but we begin with help for Haiti, as 150 Bahamians will head to the impoverished island nation as it continues to battle a humanitarian crisis. The Bahamas joins Kenya following its pledge of support earlier this week. For some time, Haiti has struggled with political and social instability, resulting in widespread poverty and violence. In a statement, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said the Bahamas looks forward to working with Kenya and other partners in Haiti to assist in efforts to bring peace and stability. Kenya has said that it will also provide 1,000 police officers to lead the multinational force in the country. Well, a 23-year-old man from Eleuthera was stabbed last night, and police say they need your help finding the perpetrator. Police telling Our News that shortly after 10 o'clock last night, the victim was at Potter's Key Dock when he was involved in a fight with another man who pulled out a knife and stabbed him multiple times. Police say the assailant escaped by running from the scene. The victim was transported to hospital in a private vehicle. He's listed in stable condition. Investigations are said to be ongoing. And a hit-and-run driver who mowed down a pedestrian as he walked to work has been jailed for 3 years and 6 months. 25-year-old Altamise Roll, a self-employed nail technician, learned her fate months after pleading guilty to vehicular manslaughter in the February 14, 2022 death of Sandy Roll. She faced a maximum of 10 years in prison. The victim was walking to work on John F. Kennedy Drive when Roll, who was driving an unlicensed and uninsured car, knocked him down and failed to stop. She also did not have a valid driver's license. Roll didn't immediately report the accident to police and didn't come forward until 3 days later on February 17th. In passing the sentence, Justice Gregory Hilton said Roll might have survived if he had received immediate medical attention. Now, Roll also has to pay compensation to the deceased's estate in the amount of $20,000 by August 31st, 2027. The sentence takes effect from today because Roll was already allowed to remain on bail following her guilty plea on May 15th. Well, now to the Senate, as the controversial Protection Against Violence Bill 2023 is now on the floor. While the bill saw fierce opposition, the government insisting it is a revised but better version of the gender-based violence bill. Berthany McDermott has the story.
Amid criticism, the bill presented is far from what was originally presented years ago. Attorney General Ryan Pinder admitted to senators the bill is a shift supported by policy and expert analysis. The previous version of the bill was termed the gender-based violence bill. Pinder says the 2016 version of that bill focused only on gender-based violence and has the potential to be confusing, adding that a broader approach to violence is more appropriate.
We want to ensure that we are passing legislation on violence that is appropriate and avoids the possibility of confusion.
Pinder outlined a few gaps with the previous forms of the gender-based violence bill, which resulted in the current bill. Opposition Senator Michael Barnett Ellis says government doesn't understand the issue and stressed the need for consultation.
Consultation is not one meeting with 5 days' notice after the bill has been tabled. This administration knows what consultation is. Meeting stakeholders after a bill has been tabled is not consultation at the formative stage.
The bill also makes way for the formation of the Protection Against Violence Commission, which operates at the direction of the minister, which Barnett Ellis criticized. To those points, the Attorney General quickly hit back with this.
Consultation occurred for many, many years, way over a decade. And I personally, let me speak. You don't have to gawk at me. Let me speak. I personally was involved in at least 5 or 6 consultations with small groups on the drafting and evolution. And government is involved in this process. In the 2016 bill, government's involved in this process.
Yes.
And in the 2023 bill, government is involved in this process. That is not a bad thing, Madam President.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Well, Director of Equality Bahamas, Alicia Wallace, refuting the Prime Minister's statement that opposition towards the Protection Against Violence Bill 2023 came at the last hour. She says Equality Bahamas participated often and provided feedback during consultations. She says it's actually the consultations themselves being last minute, as well as no access to the most recent drafts of bills that caused the issue.
We have been in these discussions. We at Equality Bahamas have been participating in processes. We've been attending as many meetings as we can that are being called by the Ministry of Social Services and Urban Development through the Department of Gender and Family Affairs. And it's really important to note here that these meetings are called with very little notice, and we are not being provided with the text that we need to really participate in these meetings in a meaningful way and be able to provide feedback in person. So as an example, a meeting was called, we received the invitation on April 16th for a meeting with the minister on April 18th. That is unacceptable.
A similar concern came up at a recent consultative forum covering the Protection Against Violence Bill and the Sexual Offences Amendment Bill, as audience members and NGO leaders complain about the bills not being ready to read online. Wallace says this is commonplace with consultations.
For many of us who are running women's rights organizations and feminist activists and organizers, do not do this full time. We do not have funding to run 9 to 5, Monday to Friday organizations. So we have to carve time out for this. And this is a consistent practice of the Department of Gender and Family Affairs. And I don't know to what extent the ministry is also responsible for this, but we receive these last minute invitations. It's sort of checking the box to say, oh yeah, we had a consultation, but inviting people to a meeting, making a presentation does not constitute consultation. And frankly, we are sick and tired of this approach and it needs to change. All
right, we've got more on that story coming up in our news at 7:30. Much more to get to, including your first look at temperatures. Meteorologist Greg Thompson, he's standing by in the Weather Center. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Candian, and a happy Wednesday evening, everybody. Cloudy conditions across New Providence, Andros, and portions of Eleuthera. The remainder of the Bahamas looking pretty nice, but it is warm and it is humid on the outside right now. Temperatures still in the mid-80s, 85 under partly cloudy skies. Your winds are out of the east at 6 miles per hour, and your feels-like temperature very near the 90-degree mark. Very, very warm and humid conditions on the outside. Temperatures around the islands right now, it's 85 in Freeport, 84 in Alistown, Bimini, and in Marsh Harbor, Abaco. We pick up 86s in Great Harbor Key, Nicholstown, Andros, over in Governor's Harbor. Central Bahamas, 85s once again, Kemps Bay, Georgetown, Arthurstown, Cat Island, Deadman's Key. San Salvador, Coburn Town, you guys are 87, and into the southeast Bahamas, 85s in Duncantown, Ragged Island, and in Colonel Hill, Crooked Island. Delectable Bay, Acklands, 86, Abrams Bay, 86, Matthewtown, Inagua, 86, and our neighbors to the southeast, Turks and Caicos Islands, you are 86 at this hour as well. Satellite and radar composite showing a line of clouds, or a cluster of clouds and some showers and embedded thunderstorms moving into the northwest Bahamas early today. We got a couple of isolated showers here in the capital as well. Most of the activity is still hanging out across the Eleuthera, New Providence, and in the Andros area. That's all associated with the frontal boundary that's to the north of us. It's going to continue to sag towards the south. So we could see a couple more showers later on tonight through tomorrow. And there's some more moisture behind that. So we could see some showers lurking into Friday, Saturday time frame. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us to look at your extended forecast. Still to come.
Still to come on our news, we are learning tonight the Village Road project is still not 100% complete. The latest from engineers in tonight's Work in Progress segment. And learning about the benefits of breastfeeding, why the National Breastfeeding Association is encouraging new mothers in the practice. And later, the World Athletics Relays returns. We'll tell you the new date when our news continues. The Village Road Improvement Project is just about complete. Resident engineer for the project admitting that there's still some more work to be done. Talia Hall has more in tonight's Work in Progress segment.
The sidewalk works are underway. We've had some challenges with the weather primarily. It's been very wet, difficult to plant concrete pours when it's raining. And so we projected we needed about 2 to 3 weeks left to finish up sidewalks. Right now we're about 75% complete with the sidewalk slabs, about 90% complete with the curbs.
Resident engineer at the Ministry of Works, Albrion Simonette Jr. says the weather has caused a major challenge in completing sidewalks on Village Road, as he says the rain saturates the ground.
The first step with building the sidewalk is the earthwork. As you know, it's easier to do earthwork when it's dry. When it's muddy, it doesn't make sense trying to move the earth around.
He says they were unable to start sidewalks earlier as they were focusing on underground and paving work.
There's a risk of damaging the sidewalk. So we consider the sidewalk to be a bit of the finishing touch to the last bit of work that we do. So we set out to leave the sidewalk till the very end as a part of the painting, striping, and electrification of the traffic signals. Those are the last few bits of work. We're now moving into doing landscaping.
And as to why these sidewalks are important on this major thoroughfare,
in a lot of areas, the sidewalk would have been failing. There's some areas where it's aged, there's cracking and such. Of course, some would have been damaged through the course of the works. So we've decided to undertake to redo the entire sidewalk along Village Road, which will, of course, make it easier for pedestrian traffic, make it easier for wheelchair traffic. We're incorporating ramps into this new sidewalk construction. Where there were no ramps before, we are now adding ramps to ensure that the most vulnerable road users among us are able to actually use the sidewalks.
Reporting for Work in Progress for Our News, I'm Natalia Hall.
It is considered liquid gold as breast milk is filled with all the necessary nutrients to ensure healthy baby growth. And if you are a mother and have the ability to produce breast milk, the Bahamas National Breastfeeding Association is encouraging you to breastfeed. President Trinica Hall is also encouraging mothers not to practice what she calls combo feeding.
They would breastfeed while they're home, off maternity, while they're on maternity leave. But once they know they're coming near to returning back to work, they start introducing formula. So that's what I call the combo feeding, and that is not recommended by WHO. They should exclusively breastfeed their baby for the first 6 months.
And exclusively breastfeeding is said to have benefits for both mother and baby.
IQ levels are said to be higher for breastfed babies because of the hormone that is secreted from the mother to the baby. And then the baby doesn't get sick.
We reckon that breastfeeding is an effective way to combat undernutrition. So if more and more women were breastfeeding, we would have less and less morbidity, less and less children mortality.
Now this year's theme focuses on working mothers who breastfeed, and the association is encouraging employers to ensure that there are provisions in place to allow mothers to do so.
Breastfed mothers do not stay away from work calling in sick. Why? Because their babies are well enough, so they are producing for the employer.
Now, for mothers who are unable to breastfeed or may be having challenges, the women at the National Breastfeeding Association say they're always available to offer assistance. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Misick.
When our news comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as 21 Trump election lies listed in a new indictment. Plus, we are learning about promising AI breast cancer screening. And later, police raids lead to the deaths of 43 people in Brazil. The story when Our News returns. This is Our News. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. United States Special Counsel Jack Smith said Tuesday that the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol was fueled by lies told by former President Donald Trump. Trump was indicted on 4 new criminal charges yesterday, all related to his alleged effort to overturn his defeat in the 2020 election. The indictment lays out a total of 21 lies.
In this case, my office will seek a speedy trial so that our evidence can be tested in court and judged by a jury of citizens. In the meantime, I must emphasize that the indictment is only an allegation and that the defendant must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law.
Google AI said to detect that is, breast cancer more accurately than doctors. The accuracy of the artificial intelligence system was tested through a study published in the scientific journal Nature as experts from Google Health, Alphabet's DeepMind unit, and UK and US universities showed the AI model reduced both false positives, in which patients were wrongfully told they have cancer, as well as false negatives, where the disease is present but not diagnosed. According to the American Cancer Society, screening mammograms are known to be imperfect, failing to detect about 1 in 5 breast cancers. And police raids targeting drug gangs in 3 Brazilian states have left at least 43 people dead. In the latest operation in Rio de Janeiro, police said they returned fire in a shootout, killing at least 10. During the 3 operations, guns, phones, and drugs were seized, as well as the death of 2 police officers and a drug trafficking kingpin and trafficker. And thousands of soldiers in El Salvador have surrounded a rural region larger than New York City to flush out gang members who are allegedly hiding there. The military deployment in Cabañas was ordered by the President Nayib Bukele as part of his ongoing war on gangs. Now, more than 70,000 suspected gang members have been arrested since a state of emergency was declared in March 2022. And Belizean opposition leader Shine Barrow has filed a motion of no confidence in Prime Minister of Belize, John Briceño. Barrow said the move by the opposition to file the motion is due to controversy surrounding the Portico definitive agreement. The statement said that in June, Royal Caribbean Group reiterated its commitment to significantly increase its contribution to Belize's tourism economy.
These are things that prove that the Prime Minister of Belize, John Briceño, has lost his way, has lost his mandate, has lost the confidence of the Belizean people. When 6 of his own cabinet ministers publicly denounced an agreement that he tried to get passed.
All right, well, come May 2024, the World Athletics Relays will return to the Bahamas. It's the 4th time we'll host the high-level track and field event, and it won't just be any event or any regular event, as the World Athletics Relays will serve as a precursor for the Olympics. So if you want to participate in the relays at the Olympics in Paris next year, you must come through the Bahamas. In the launch today at the National Stadium, event chairman Dr. Daniel Johnson and deputy chairman Pauline Davis speaking to the bidding process and why the Bahamas eventually got the green light.
It's very difficult because most people measure this thing just by money. Well, the proof of 2 things why it's here again says that money is not enough. You got to read a book called Talent is Not Enough by Gordon Pauline, right? It's not enough that people just say, boom, we're going to put up $1 billion to host this event. There has to be a story behind it.
The athletes of the world were really the ones I was made to understand that pushed the Bahamas over the top. They specifically sent a note to World Athletics to say, we want to go to the Bahamas.
Well, the relays are scheduled for May 3rd to 5th, 2024. Bahamas Amateur Athletic Association President and CEO of the event, Dramico Archer.
This is more than an Olympic qualifying event where 14 of the 16 relay teams will be punching their tickets to Paris. It is an event that will showcase the beautiful people, culture, and tourism splendor of the Bahamas. Beginning in November, we intend to raise the baton throughout the streets and settlements of every family island. This is an opportunity to welcome the world once again and show that it is truly better in the Bahamas.
Still to come in our news today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was August 2nd. Then in our news at 7:30, a cry for help. The emotional story of a sick Grand Bahamian mother who says she's been waiting for months for life or death results. Plus, behind bars, Chinese nationals accused of human trafficking face a judge. More from today's court hearing when our news continues. Welcome back to Our News. It's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was August 2nd. Take a look. On this day in Bahamian history in 1973, an Associated Press article about the Bahamas' Emancipation Day celebrations was published in the St. Louis Dispatch newspaper. The article was titled "Blacks Celebrate Freedom, Whites Celebrate Enlightenment." An excerpt from the article reads, "Singing and dancing to the accompaniment of goatskin drums and bottle and comb music, Negroes of the Bahamas celebrated Emancipation Day today. All business in the capital was suspended, and most of the white people, too, journeyed out to Fox Hill, a picturesque native settlement 10 miles from town." Then 30 years later in 2003, two vessels, a ferry boat, the MVC Hauler, and a cargo ship, the United Star, collided 9 miles off the island of Eleuthera. The Sea Hauler was traveling from New Providence to Cat Island, while the United Star was leaving Cat Island on its way to New Providence. Reports say shortly after 1 a.m. on the day, the two boats collided and a crane from the United Star fell across the Sea Hauler, killing 4 passengers. 25 people were injured, some of whom had to be transported to New Providence for medical treatment by the United States Coast Guard and the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. 7 others were reported missing. And finally, in 2017, former Minister of Labor and National Insurance Shane Gibson was taken into police custody for questioning. He was later charged with 36 counts, including 16 counts of bribery and 15 counts of extortion. 2 years later, in 2019, Gibson was acquitted. Well, the award-winning Bahamian kids show Gumbe Kids has signed the biggest North American deal ever made by a live-action Caribbean kids show. The show, which premiered in 2020, has come a long way, according to creator and executive producer Stephanie Neon. It's now available to stream on an app connected to TV platforms, delivering over 1 billion monthly views and over 16 million monthly active users.
Yeah, the platform that we signed on is called Happy Kids. It's an app. It's a free download app that you can find right in your app store. It's a real great thing to be on this site, this app for us, because it's also distributed on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Sony, Comcast. So we have a nice far reach on it, and it's also certified. So it's quality controlled, so that parents can know that it's great content for their children, and that it's child appropriate. And
Neon tells us Gumbe Kids was designed with Bahamian kids at heart, covering educational, heartwarming, and adventurous stories. Because of the small nature of the Bahamian television industry and audience, she also says expanding internationally is vital to the show's success and is excited to share their stories with the world.
So it really has become something that a goal of ours, so that the show could even continue. So we're filming season 5 tomorrow, and this is a huge momentous thing for us, because we need to raise our value and get more eyeballs on the show, and growing it internationally will do that for us, and being able to be accessible on an international platform. So it's really a great moment for us, and we love that people all over the world can watch the show now and enjoy Gumbe Kids.
All right, and congratulations to Gumbe Kids. If you want to learn more about where you'd be able to catch the show, be sure and visit ournews.bs. You can watch that story and all of today's top stories at ournews.bs. And remember, you can share your favorites right from the Our News Facebook page. It's going to do it for us in News at 7. Joining us now is Italia Holm with the latest headlines. Italia?
Yes, Ken. Happy Wednesday.
I know. Halfway there.
Almost
halfway there.
Yeah. All right.
It's hump day.
Hump day. Yes, Ken. Yeah. Thanks so much. Well, the emotional story of a sick Grand Bahamian mother and Chinese nationals accused of human trafficking face a judge. Here are your latest headlines.
A call for help first tonight on Our News Live at 7:30. Tonight, a Grand Bahamian mother in a life or death situation, calling on the Health and Wellness Minister to intervene. Plus, an investigation launched into an oil spill on Grand Bahama today. Also, why the Director of Equality Bahamas is calling on the Protection Against Violence bill watered down. And later, the cost of rent has increased tremendously over the last decade. Our Megan Shepard speaks with 2 experts on the issue. Our News Live at 7:30 starts in a moment.
I always find new ways to connect. Even with those friends that are very, very far away. It doesn't matter who you are. What matters is sharing. Because sharing a bucket with friends tastes finger-licking good.
If new, Heineken Silver was a riveting Viking saga.
Last the 12th, your family tortured my first wife and stole my second favorite goat. Now you want to marry my daughter. Okay.
All the taste, no bitter endings. Smooth, fresh, Silver.
Embrace technology and the digital transformation for better business results. For small business owners, it's essential to understand how technology can affect operational efficiencies. Modern communication relies on technology, and your customer service depends on communication. With proper tools like our fixed and mobile services, we help you stay connected. For solutions that work, ask the experts. Call Cable Bahamas Business Solutions.
Welcome to our news and thank you for joining us. I'm Natalia Hall. Tonight, a Grand Bahamian mother says she's been waiting for nearly 2 months for life or death results. She shares her emotional story with our Joshua Williams.
I don't want to end up like persons we have seen before who have testified about what's going on in the healthcare system, and then they end up dead, maimed, or just living with complete anxiety.
Now at her wit's end, a mother is awaiting the delayed results of the medical test that will determine whether or not she's suffering from stage 4 cervical cancer, a delay she's laying at the feet of the public health system.
There is no paperwork available. Obviously, the doctors and the nurses and the attendants, everyone did their part, but there has been a breakdown in the system.
Those results, Lockhart says, won't be released until the 25th of this month. Lockhart was recently diagnosed with cervical dysplasia 1 and 2, a condition where abnormal cells grow on the surface of the cervix. She fears the worst as she has already lost a family member to the same condition.
My son is afraid. My mother, my father, everyone is in fear because we don't know what is going on. I lost an aunt in 2013 to cervical cancer. So right there's a family history, and I need to know what's going on.
Lockhart blames misorganization and a lack of paperwork as the reason for her delay, something Public Hospitals Authority Managing Director Albernate Rolls says is being worked on.
Presently in the system, we're using what we call manual paper, and sometimes we do have parts of the patient's records that are missing, and sometimes it doesn't reach the clinic in time, and so we do recognize that that can cause an issue. PHA right now is moving forward to expand and to move forward in digitization. I can say that we have started that in New Providence, and it is definitely a priority for the entire system, but in particular Grand Bahama.
Reporting for our news, I'm Joshua Williams.
All right, thanks for that, Josh. Well, there's been another oil spill in Grand Bahama. The incident that unfolded at Buckeye Bahamas Jetty prompted the Ministry of Transport and Housing to launch an investigation into what they're calling the appearance of an oil slick in waters at Buckeye Terminal. Our news cameraman Rory Storr capturing this footage of the area today, where large ships were seen navigating the area. Now, the ministry noted in a press release that the Port Department was notified of the oil slick around 7 Wednesday morning. It added the Ministry of Transport and Housing immediately executed its contingency plan, including the activation of the National Oil Spill Advisory Committee. Now, senior officials from the Ministry of Transport and Housing and the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources from New Providence are expected to arrive in Grand Bahama on Thursday morning to assess the impact and to investigate the source of the oil slick. A team from the Port Department in Grand Bahama is currently monitoring the response efforts. Now, our news made several attempts to contact Buckeye for comment on the incident, but our calls were not answered up to news time. All right, well, 3 Chinese nationals are behind bars after being accused of forcing another Chinese national into indentured servitude. Prosecutors allege that 30-year-old Zhao Jinbo became a victim of human trafficking after he went to work at the Bird Key Marina Corp in the Berry Islands. Prosecutors say Zhang Gao, Lai Quang, and Feng Gao conspired to engage in trafficking in persons between March 1, 2023 and July 19, 2023. Now, during this period, they allegedly withheld the complainant's passport, suffocated him until he passed out, and assaulted him. Zhang Gao is charged along with trafficking the alleged victim. The accused, who works at Bird Cat Marina Corp, were not required to enter pleas to the charges when they appeared before Acting Chief Magistrate Roberto Reckley. Bail was denied, and they returned to court on October 5th to receive voluntary bill of indictment papers. While the Director of Equality Bahamas is pushing back on claims that opposition to the Protection Against Violence bill was last minute, and says the bill, which she calls watered down, is similar to simply trying to tick a box. Marlena Leonard has more in this report.
The watering down of what used to be the gender-based violence bill is completely unacceptable. What it has turned into is what they're calling the Protection Against Violence bill. And by removing that word gender, we are ignoring the fact that this bill is supposed to be addressing specifically violence that disproportionately impacts people like women and LGBTQI plus people because of their gender, and people who disproportionately experience various types of violence.
That's Alicia Wallace, Director of Equality Bahamas, explaining the danger in the language changes that have been placed in the Protection Against Violence Bill 2023. She calls the new bill a rollback of the 2016 draft of the gender-based violence bill, and says we must be wary of simply ticking boxes when it comes to equality issues.
We're seeing over and over again with this administration and with previous administrations that they are really interested in checking boxes. The impact or the real outcomes of the measures that are being taken aren't truly being considered or prioritized. And they want to be able to say that these things are in progress and eventually be able to say that they did them. But it does not seem as though there's a real concern for the quality of the legislation and the policies that are being put forward and that are eventually being passed.
The Prime Minister recently expressed disappointment over what he felt was last-minute opposition to the new bill. But Wallace says the pushback has been ongoing and shares part of the issue is the style of consultations.
And it's really important to note here that these meetings are called with very little notice, and we are not being provided with the text that we need to really participate in these meetings in a meaningful way and be able to provide feedback in person. But we receive these last-minute invitations. It's sort of checking the box to say, oh yeah, we had a consultation. But inviting people to a meeting, making a presentation does not constitute consultation. And frankly, we are sick and tired of this approach, and it needs to change.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
All right, thanks, Marlena. Overcast skies this evening in the capital, and the forecast is showing some rain. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with a first look at weather. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Natalia, and welcome back, everybody, for a quick check on conditions outside our studios and around the islands. It's humid outside, partly cloudy skies, 85 degrees right now outside our studios. East winds at 6 miles per hour, and your field strike temperature at 89. Satellite and radar composite showing a line of clouds associated with a weak frontal boundary that's dropping into the northwest Bahamas. Some of those showers are lending support to some cooler conditions earlier, but it's making it feel humid. Most of the activity still just across the New Providence, Andros, and Eleuthera, but there are some more showers behind that. We expect 1 or 2 more showers later on tonight through tomorrow. That's a quick check on conditions outside our studios and around the island. Stick with us. A look at your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come in our news, why an expert is cautioning buyers and renters to beware. Our Megan Shepard has the story. Plus, early screening is key in detecting colon cancer. What a local doctor says in this exclusive interview with our Jamila Mizik. And later, our Bahamian segment continues. Tonight, we recognize an ambassador and former police commissioner when our news continues.
Doctors Hospital is reimagined primary care. We have invested to improve our health system, ensuring that accessible, affordable, world-class clinical care is closer to you. Your relationship with a primary care provider shapes the foundation of your overall health. Our new, modern primary care facilities are where critical diagnosis and true personalized treatment begin. With locations across New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Exuma, we invite you to experience the Doctors Hospital difference. Book your next appointment at clinics.doctorshos.com.
If new, Heineken Silver was a riveting Viking saga.
Last the 12th, your family tortured my first wife and stole my second favorite goat. Now you want to marry my daughter. Okay.
All the taste, no bitter endings. Smooth, fresh, silver.
Renter strikes happening around the world, capturing international headlines. The most recent in Toronto, Canada, even as the country has enforceable rent control regulations. But could we possibly see rent control in the future here in the Bahamas? Well, our Megan Shepherd put the question to the Bahamas Real Estate Association.
It all boils down to supply and demand. And according to Bahamas Real Estate Association member Philip Kemp, the local rental demand is high. But if you were to ask the average consumer, renters may beg to differ. An audit of social media commentary shows potential tenants believe some of the existing supply oftentimes does not meet the quality for rent prices as advertised. And while potential tenants in other countries may benefit from rent control, Bahamian renters don't have the same luxury. But can it work in the Bahamas? We put the question to Kemp.
They're going to have to then look at giving those landlords some sort of concession, right? The offset. And the bigger picture, or what the common goal or the common object is, to have a roof over locals' head, where it's affordable, where it's clean, secured, and gonna be maintained.
BRIA President Nikki Booth says introducing regulations will mean a lot of research and consultation with licensed agents. As for how it may impact landlords.
And if you get into price controls, no one is going to continue to invest in that particular sector. They're going to say, it's not worth my while, I can't make any money from it, and then we'll have even a bigger crisis on our hands.
And for the benefit of consumers.
I'm all about the consumer being protected, but like I said earlier, I think the market for us does protect us to a larger degree. If you overprice your merchandise, it's just not going to sell.
As for buyers, he says, beware and always use a licensed agent.
Get your budget and be true to your budget, and have a little flexibility on properties that you see. You're not going to get everything, but know what you're willing to live with.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Megan Shepherd.
All right, great report, Megan. Thanks for that. Well, colon cancer is one of the most prevalent type of cancers in the Bahamas, and experts say early screening is key. Well, tonight, our Jamila Mizik tells us how a local health center in Grand Bahama is offering affordable screening for residents.
Colon cancer is the third most common cancer in the Bahamas, and while a colonoscopy is the most popular form of detection for colon cancer, family practitioner and CEO of Ralpha Health Center, Dr. Kilafo Colley, says they're working with global labs to make screening more affordable and efficient.
We get this stool specimen, and we do a test that looks at the DNA and detecting any form of blood that might be in the stool, microscopic, small amounts that you might not be able to see. And then, of course, if that's positive, then we refer you to get further investigation.
His recommendation is to get screened early.
Male and females over the age of 40, some studies say 45 years old, but if you've had a first-degree relative, a mother, father, sibling who's had colon cancer, you should have it done 5 years prior to when they were diagnosed.
And he says the assessment is free of charge.
There's a questionnaire we provide, and if the person is at high risk, they pass the stool and send it on to the global labs, and that lab is just a small fee for the stool, but everything else is free. The referral, if it's positive, to a surgeon, to further investigate, or gastroenterologist, it's also free. Usually a colonoscopy is from $5,000 to $7,000 to have that test. This stool test now is just $79 to $100 with VAT to have done.
While the initiative kicked off in Grand Bahama, he says the screening will be nationwide. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Missick.
When Our News comes back from the break tonight, we highlight a Bahamian man who's contributed to nation building in our Bahamian segment.
Jazz Chisholm makes his return to the Diamond. Jonquil Jones and the Liberty get the sweep in LA, and the Bahamas Hoops tournament bracket is released. Stay with us, our sports is coming right up.
And overcast skies in the capital today as temperatures cool down. Greg is back in the weather center right after this quick break. Stay with us.
Today's sports update is sponsored by Michelob Ultra, distributed in the Bahamas by Jimmy's Wines and Spirits.
This is Our News. Welcome back. Jazz Chisholm returns to the field, and JJ and the Liberty win both games of a doubleheader, and the Bahamas Hoop schedule is published. Here's Tej Adley with a check on sports. Tej?
Thanks, Itai. Hello, good evening. I'm Tej Adley with some sports to get you over the hump. Jazz Chisholm's season has been derailed by one injury after another. He made his return from an oblique strain suffered last month. Jazz Chisholm made his return on Monday from an oblique strain he suffered on July 4th. The superstar center fielder went 1 for 3 with a double and a walk, but it wasn't enough as his Marlins fell to the Philadelphia Phillies 4-2. Jazz sat out last night's loss to the Phils to rest his oblique, but he should be back in action right now. Moving on to some hoops, Jonquil Jones and the Liberty got their 6th win in the past 7 games, competing a sweep of the LA Sparks. Jonquil Jones and the New York Liberty won the 2nd game of their doubleheader against the Los Angeles Sparks last night, 76-69. JJ had 9 points and 8 rebounds on only 2 of 3 shooting. She didn't need to do too much because Courtney Vandersloot had 23 points and 6 assists, and Brianna Stewart had 16 and 12. They're up against the Minnesota Lynx on Friday night. Before we leave, Bahamas Hoops announces 2023 schedule. The college tournament will feature big names on the women's side, including Southern California, Ohio State, Purdue, OK State, and Georgia, just to name a few. We also had the launch of Royal Athletics Relay scheduled for May next year. There was a press conference, so we'll have more on that tomorrow. That'll do it for sports today. I'm Tej Adderley.
Still ahead on Our News tonight, the Our Bahamian segment continues. Tonight, we highlight a former commissioner of police. And cloudy skies outside the Our News studios this evening. Can we expect any more showers? Well, Greg is back with the answer when Our News returns.
Welcome back to Our News. Cloudy skies on this Wednesday night. Are you wondering what you can expect for the rest of the work week? Well, Greg is back in the Weather Center with your extended forecast. Greg?
Yeah, thanks again, Natalia, and welcome back, everybody, for our final check of weather. We have a weak frontal boundary associated with an upper-level trough that's been triggering some showers and thunderstorms across the northwest Bahamas. Some moisture still associated with that boundary pushing into the northwest Bahamas. It's likely to sag in the central Bahamas overnight, but there's still some moisture around behind that could lend us some support for some isolated showers and thunderstorms tonight through tomorrow across the northwest Bahamas. But dry air mass will be moving in behind that. High pressure at the surface is going to be dominating our weather, but it's very weak, so boating conditions pretty nice on the outdoors. As mentioned, that front boundary stretched all the way out in the open Atlantic. And of course, we have that system that the National Hurricane Center is still watching, giving it a very, very low chance, 10%. And it's expected to merge with that front boundary quickly, moving towards the north and east and away from us. Big upper level lows, lending some shearing to that system as well. But the remainder of the tropics, quiet. We have a couple of tropical waves moving across the tropical belt, but no organization at this time. Future forecast showing a couple isolated showers with that front boundary moving into the northwest Bahamas, as I mentioned. Some of that getting into the central Bahamas along with the clouds, but we will have some moisture still lurking around through tomorrow and into Friday, so we could see a couple isolated showers and thunderstorms in the forecast. If you're doing any boating, as I mentioned, very nice on the waters. Your winds will be light and variable tonight, but become more northeast to east at 5 to 10 knots tomorrow. Seas running 1 to 3 feet. Your high tide will be at 9:18 tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your extended forecast. Isolated showers in the forecast Thursday and Friday. We get a little bit of a break on Saturday. Monday, we get some more showers in the forecast, but by next week, we should see some clearing, and those temperatures will stay very warm in the mid to low 90s. Triple indices expected, so if you're doing anything on the outdoors, do protect yourself. That's a look at our weather. Have a great night, and stay safe, everybody.
All right, thanks for that, Greg. Well, almost a month since, and we're still celebrating 50 years of independence. Ahead of July 10th, we began our independence special called Our Bahamas, brought to you by the Bahamas Independence Secretariat. The series continues tonight with the story of former police commissioner Ellison Greenslade. Let's take a look.
Ellison Edroy Greenslade was born in New Providence on May 24, 1961. He attended schools in Cedar Harbor, Abaco, Lovely Bay, Acklands, Kemps Bay, Andros, Knowles, Cat Island, and Stephen Dillett in New Providence. Greenslade later graduated from Government High School and later enrolled in the Police Training College. Upon his graduation, Greenslade continued his studies part-time and subsequently obtained an associate's degree in business administration from the University of the Bahamas. After serving in numerous divisional command positions in the Royal Bahamas Police Force, Greenslade was promoted to Assistant Commissioner of Police in July 2000. Upon his promotion, he was transferred to Freeport, Grand Bahama, where he spent 7 years in the north in charge of Abaco, Bimini, and the Berry Islands. Greenslade served in the post for 7 years, making him the longest-serving district commander for the Northern Bahamas. During his tenure, he received national acclaim for his leadership role during the investigations into the disappearance of 5 young boys and the search and rescue operations in the aftermath of Hurricanes Francis, Jean, and Wilma. Greenslade served as the acting Deputy Commissioner of Police from January 1, 2009, upon completion of a 1-year secondment with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Canada. On January 4, 2010, Greenslade was appointed the 6th Commissioner of Police in an independent Bahamas. Greenslade stepped down as Commissioner of Police in 2017 to take up his new appointment as High Commissioner to the United Kingdom on November 15th that year. 5 years later, on December 1, 2022, Greenslade became Bahamas Ambassador to South Africa and 9 other countries including Botswana, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Kenya, Malawi, Rwanda, Eswatini, Burundi, and Sudan.
All right, and that was our Kendino Knowles. Thanks for that, Kendino. For an extended look at Greenslade's life and legacy, you can catch the full episode available now on ournews.bs. You can find that and all of today's top stories. And remember, you can share all of your favorites from the Our News Facebook page. And before we go tonight, we want to wish our news summer intern, Tito Colley, a happy birthday. He's been a star player since he joined us this summer, and we wish him all the best on his birthday. Happy birthday, Tito. And with that, we thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.